So.
Right.
Take it away.
So we're gonna call to order the review subcommittee meeting for Thursday, April 17th. This is a hybrid meeting and the public is welcome to attend. Please note that the in-person meeting will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the remote connection. So if we do a roll call. Mark on Board of Health.
Dave Sargent, advisor.
Red Calendar advisor.
Joe Rosa, Board of Health.
Aaron George, Board of Health.
John Judd, engineer.
Joe Borland,
Assistant.
applicant, yes.
Gabrielle White, Assistant Health Director.
Connor Williamson, assistant Title V instructor. Cody Smith, Title V secretary.
Welcome to public organization.
I don't have any hands raised and it's just Bobby on the line, so.
Next up is the approval of the March 20th, 2025 Board of Health subject reviews and meeting minutes.
I have to abstain, I wasn't at that meeting.
It's just me.
Or not the one. So,
That one?
yeah, we can move it to the next subject review meeting.
As well as approval of the April 10th Board of Health special hearing meeting minutes. Were we all there for that?
Yeah, that was last week. right?
Yes.
Time's fleeting, yeah.
Yes.
Aaron, yes.
Joe Rosa, yes.
Mark, yes. All right, next up is 47 Yale County Road, a relief request from John.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, John Judd, engineer with Gateway Consultants, representing Joseph Borland, who is here tonight. Joe is a fixture along the waterfront. You may recognize him for the work he does along the harbor and the river. Marine related industry, longtime resident, family has been here for how many years, Joe?
On Rust Island, 60.
60 years. Hello. So we have a 2-acre property here on Rust Island that has an existing 2-bedroom structure, which Joe's mom lives there, and a pretty significant area. Significant area of vacant land out here, and Joe would like to do a 2-bedroom ADU in keeping with the new regulations that allow it both in the city and the state for housing for himself, keep his mom in place here, age in place in her cottage. And we've designed a sewage disposal system that's been reviewed by staff, and we have requisite testing here and perk rates and so forth that completely meet Title V. This property was served previously by wells. Now we have the new water service, municipal water service up here, so that reduces any potential for well and contamination by a proposed septic system. But we're here for a proposed 4-bedroom septic system that would serve both the existing 2-bedroom dwelling and the proposed ADU that Joe would like to live on. We again meet all requirements of Title V, and the reason we're here is we're asking for variances under the local bylaw. So understanding that in the sensitivity of the area, particularly Annisquam River, we have put in as much as we can in terms of effluent treatment. So we have an advanced treatment, active treatment system, which is the singular system, but we also added the component for nitrates removal. So that is an additional expense that Joe is willing to undertake. And lastly, we would be doing pressure distribution with this proposed leach field. So the proposal is for both structures to be tied into this tank system, treatment system, and then pressure distribution. The variances that we're looking for are associated with the Annisquam River Specifically, the new regulations require a 200-foot setback from mean high water. And we're looking for, from the primary, 187 feet from the mean high water, so just 13 feet short. For the primary, the reserve is a bit closer, but there's no intention to build that. So that's just, as you know, it's required under Title V to show a future expansion if needed. The other variance would be to situate the leaching facility within 200 feet of a salt marsh. And we list those variances as well. And that is a local requirement, 200 feet, and we're providing 140 feet and 128 for the primary and reserve area respectively. Again, the state only requires 50 feet, but we're trying to meet to the extent possible the local regulations. And lastly, the requesting a leaching facility to be within 200 feet of a coastal bank. Again, with advanced effluent treatment, the coastal bank in this case is at approximately elevation 20. And obviously the mean high water is down at around elevation 4. So we're quite a bit vertically, quite a bit higher with the leach field, which is in the area of 38. So elevation 38, the mean high water is around 4. So we're over 34 feet above that vertically. Again, providing optimal treatment. Again, meeting all the standards for Title V, the state requirements which are, in my opinion, very strict. And then obviously Gloucester's is, as it should be, is much more strict. So that is a brief presentation. Joe's here to answer any questions that you might have on the history of the property, or if there's any other questions we can answer.
John, I have a question.
Sure.
2 questions, actually. One, the existing system is what?
It's over here, Joe, and it's, I'm not sure what the answer you want me to give you, but it's antiquated, you know.
The existing system is a cesspool,
Okay.
and it's you know, failing according to the law.
Yeah.
Okay, it's failing by design. It is not in failure, it doesn't have breakout. It's serving the house and has been serving the house for
50 years.
100 years probably.
And
But it is a.
With the addition of the ADU, would the leach fields be adequate to deal with the presumably increased flow or not?
Of course. Yeah, so 2 bedrooms for the existing house and 2 bedrooms for the ADU.
Okay.
So this would be a state-of-the-art system that would be abandoned. So there are some wells over here at Rust Island, as everyone knows, but with the new water supply being brought up, I don't know if these individuals have, but we're meeting all our setbacks from that, from those wells, from the new leaching facility. But Joe is certainly bringing in at his expense, the municipal water for these structures. So my point is, Joe, we're gonna be improving that situation.
Right, no, that was my
Yeah.
question.
So, and then I guess I'd just like to kind of reiterate and just tell the board, so we've reviewed it, Tony from Weston and Sampson has also reviewed this plan. So it is an increase in flow from a 2-bedroom to a 4-bedroom system, so the board should know that they should consider it under new construction, and as so, the project needs to meet the definition of manifestly unjust, and it also needs to meet the definition of, you know, basically adding, secondary treatment, you know, because it's not gonna have an adverse health effect to the environment. So John did say, so they have 2 variances. It's the salt marsh variance and the coastal bank variance, both are coastal resources. The nitrogen is not a quite so a variance at this point because it hasn't been enacted in. Joe kind of went ahead and understood that like those regulations may be voted, and that's why he put in the nitrogen reducing system.
What's its performance?
So the Singular DN system is approved for 19 milligrams per liter.
Okay.
There is a Singular system that's approved for, I believe, either 12 or 14, the TNT system. That system, in talking with representatives that are O&M contractors, they actually believe the DN system performs better than the TNT system. The difference being, so for the Singular I think it's TNT system. Basically, what they do is they switch out the control panel. So instead of the system running 30 minutes on, it would be much better to have this system instead of a cesspool. And so I believe that this is kind of a difficult case, because if this was new construction for Title V, the minimum design standard would be 3 bedrooms, so you couldn't design it for anything less than 3, or you'd have to ask for a variance. So they've gone for 4 bedrooms here, so 1 additional over new construction. And it is an improvement to the area, but at the same time, you know, like I was saying, it doesn't meet that definition. And we have had other cases, or we're gonna see a lot of these ADU cases, and I believe that this is probably the first, the second one. We had 87R Wingersheek, which withdrew their application to come back, or they withdrew without prejudice to come back after, you know, they came in front of the board. And so Joe's kind of testing the waters now to see kind of how it will work for him. I mean, it is, like I said, it is a state-of-the-art system. Under our new regulations, there won't be a coastal bank variance for this particular project, but there will be still the salt marsh variance. You know, although it's difficult to look at a project like this and see it as an improvement, it still doesn't meet that definition of manifestly unjust. And so, given all the work we put in on our regulations, I think the board should consider that as they move forward with their determination of this project. I think that's about, I did talk with Joe about maybe moving this system around. Apparently, he might be able to speak to this. I mean, it is unique to get 4 feet of soil. So this, there is a power line easement on his property that would be difficult to remove. If you were to try to slide this system back away from this area. I don't know if the soils would exist even if he did slide it back. Because he has just about 4 feet of soil here, just slightly over. But yeah, I mean, they haven't asked for a reduction of groundwater, reduction in field size, or reduction of permeable space, so it's really, it's a tough case, I would say.
Can I say a couple things? It's been an edification for me on this whole process. A couple interesting points. The first being, there isn't a smaller system. So if I was, you know, pigeonholed into a 2-bedroom and it was a mandatory upgrade because I had a failing cesspool, I would still have to purchase all the same equipment. The 960N produces and is capable of 500 gallons per day. You can't buy a smaller system. Albeit the leaching field might get reduced and the sand and the expense for the piping, the engineering, the site work, the installation, the electricians, the plumbers, there's no cost benefit in my eyes. Like if I was given the option to reduce and I said, listen, I don't need this system. I want to put the small system in. My cost benefit analysis still puts me at somewhere between $50,000 and $75,000 for the installation. So, you know, we're moving ahead. The history of this property is, you know, is a long lineage there. You know, through my grandparents parents and then 6 kids, now 41 actual descendants that are still actively trying to use this property as a summer Saturday afternoon vacation home, maybe spend the night. My mother lives on the property. The neighbors have been notified. I've got a supporting letter here that I can either read in or just leave it as a file, but we went around every abutter and within proximity of 600 feet, every neighbor has fully supported this project in all aspects, even with the increased flow. I wrote some other stuff here. There's some interesting facts here. That house was arguably the first house on Rust Island. Pre-1896 is the first record of that house. So since we've owned it 60 years, so in 125 years, there's now 35 more homes on the north side of 128, including ours being 36. If you look at the metrics of all these homes, bedrooms, acreage, square footage, our property lies somewhere in the middle at a 2-bedroom. There's a 5-bedroom property, 7 Cove Way. It's on half an acre. That project was proposed by Dan Ottenheimer, I believe, and granted a permit in January of last year. They asked for 11 variances. They were like 20 feet from the wetlands, the salt marsh, proximity to the home. Our property in that metrics being 2 bedrooms puts me actually at the top. We're the biggest landowner on the north side of 128. It's not our intention to subdivide. There was an opportunity to potentially subdivide this and build another lot before I owned it. I purchased this property for my family 2 years ago from the rest of my family to keep it in the family. There was an opportunity we did all the engineering and everything. That's why we originally perked where we did and found that soil, because we have the frontage without special variance from the ZBA to subdivide, and that was the original ask. And then there was an opportunity to buy the entire property and keep it whole. So this project being an increase in flow per the regs falls steadily in the idea and in the lineage of our intent for the use of this property moving forward. Between myself, 3rd generation, there's 5th generation, and it's the intent to, ultimately put this property into a trust to just keep it within the family and not continue to subdivide. So that's sort of the intention. The ADU is initially either for me to move into, or the ADU is going to be built with the ADA, American Disabilities Act, in mind, for 1 floor, 1st floor bedroom, accessible kitchen and bathroom. One of my uncles is wheelchair bound from birth, grew up on that property, arguably probably why it was purchased originally. Still comes back to Gloucester and visits. So the idea that the house can be continually upgraded and renovated for his access, which currently doesn't have a 1st floor bedroom, the ADU would. And then potentially down the road, there might be modification to the existing home to accommodate that. But that's sort of the intent and the ask. And to me, and I can read my manifest here, but the manifestly unjust argument, albeit in your regs, is very subjective. I check boxes for new construction because I'm expanding flow, but this is also existing. This is existing structure, right? And in many ways, I would say arguably it's a voluntary upgrade. Now that at one point there was a committee making votes on this property, now I can come in and get it done and make pragmatic decisions and upgrades with the best interest for the environment, for my family and the longevity of the entire property. So that's sort of the intent there. Generally speaking.
I just want to expand a little bit before I know you want to move on here, but what Joe's saying is correct as far as the singular system. We've had this discussion in the past where you need enough food to come in and sustain the bacteria in these systems, otherwise they die off. So the waste coming from the house, and you have a system here that sometimes doesn't get the bacteria, then it doesn't function as well. So you actually need a balanced septic system for the flow coming into these. And Joe's right, when you have the 500 gallon per day model, this would do better in terms of keeping the bacteria, the good bacteria alive that are breaking down the bad bacteria. So I just want to expand on that a little bit, but we're here to answer any questions that the board might have this time.
Any questions?
Are you currently connected to water and has the well been abandoned?
So the well has not been abandoned. The deep water connection was just, I believe, finished 10 days ago. So two of our neighbors have connected. It's 100% the intent to connect to that and abandon the well for any sort of potable water drinking needs, although we would keep the well intact and a pumping system, for emergencies and or irrigation potentially. The well's always served us pretty well. It's hand dug. It's artesian, I think, but it's about 40 feet down, even at that elevation 39. I've been to the bottom of it. It's 40 feet. It, produces water, clean water. Even our concerns historically have been with the distance to that cesspool and being not an advanced system. It's always been a major concern. So we've regularly had it tested and the water's always come back 100%, drinkable and healthy and clean. But it is the intent to abandon that as any primary source. It would only be used, if anything, for irrigation or water source in that respect. So the city water is there and connected, and it is our intent to connect it to the home.
So
Go ahead.
just to add, so I mean, just once again, just to reiterate this, I would say that this, the board should consider this potentially a precedent setting decision based on our new regulations. If for some reason you do, or if you decide to vote yes on the variances, I would say a couple of conditions need to be made. One, the wells would need to be abandoned on the property. The second is a deed restriction for bedroom count should be put on the property. Would be two conditions that I think should be made if for some reason the board does decide to vote or does vote in favor.
How many bedrooms did you think?
Well, the proposed design is for 4 bedrooms, so I would say a deed restriction for 4 bedrooms on the property. So that down the line, Joe can't come back and subdivide this property and turn it into, this 2-bedroom ADU turns into a 4-bedroom because he has the proper frontage. Or maybe he doesn't, but his kids do come back and want to subdivide it later. I think that there are also, and I'm not aware of how to set these up, but something to the effect that these 2 dwellings have to remain on a permanent lot. Maybe Dave, would chime in on what type of documentation or John, as far as they can't be pulled apart and subdivided into some type of shared system. Because in 20 years, if someone wants to come through and then put 2 3-bedroom houses on here, I think it should be made clear that
If you want to
this
do
is
that,
one time thing.
if you want to do that through the health department, I think the restriction has to be that this system will serve this 2-bedroom and this 2-bedroom only.
Right.
So if you're doing it through the Board of Health, I think that's the only way of doing it if that's what you choose to do.
And when you're suggesting that they abandon the wells, are you denying them the ability to use it for for agriculture? Or-
Yes. I mean, they could theoretically, they could dig down and cap it. That is what they did at Seven Cove Way, another project out there, so.
It's large. Capping, it's.
So-
I mean, I
so
can
it
fill it with
is-
stone.
It
you
is
know,
a hand dug well, and as so it presents a much greater threat to groundwater than potentially a well that would be sealed off.
Mm.
And so I think that we could discuss the feasibility of how to abandon a hand dug well of that depth, but
I mean,
I
I can
do
fill it
think.
with stone. It's not, it's you know, pretty remedial. You can fill it with clean stone, but
Is there stone out there?
I mean, I would have to bring stone in. I mean, yeah, there are old walls everywhere. out there.
It's Rust Island, I was making a joke.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't
But not
know.
for irrigation.
What's your apprehension for irrigation there?
I mean, they could still use
That's what I'm like.
the wells potentially for irrigation,
Which is not potable water.
just not potable water.
So we'd have to.
Why shouldn't it be used for irrigation?
They can be.
Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry.
The hand dug well, I think potentially should be something considered like at least some type of permanent seal. You know, because it's a hand dug well, if there is, in the event of an overflow of a septic tank or a failure of the leaching field. Surface water runoff can go into that well.
Yes.
And therefore it's a direct conduit to other people's drinking water on Rust Island that may still be on a well that haven't moved over to.
So the geography of, you know, of the well and of that location is that it's built up on a knoll now. And there's a stone surrounding. I mean, it's like the one you see in kids' books. I mean, it's 150 years old, right? I don't have an issue with that, by the way. I mean, if we're in support, you know, generally speaking of the project, I don't have a problem with, I mean, if it's a deal breaker, I don't have a problem abandoning it. I just felt as though it's always been a solid, clean source of water. And in the unlikely event of a catastrophic emergency and the city goes out or a hurricane and we don't have water for days, I mean, it is a source. I don't have a problem abandoning it. But as far as runoff is concerned, it's built up now and contained in such a way that any surface rainwater or runoff all projects towards the driveway and projects to the west and down to the westerly slope of the property, which goes down to a salt marsh between the two hills of Rust Island. So all that, which actually all runs away from any neighboring properties, which, you know, to include this would also, you know, so the wells here. And this slopes east and west essentially. And even, you know, if there was sort of some catastrophic failure here, the slope is such that it would actually run most likely back towards that salt marsh down the other side and not towards the river. But again, you know, I'm not opposed to putting it down in writing that it will be abandoned. City water's there. We can hook it up. You know, it's
Well,
It's
you'll
all-
have to hook up city water. It's a matter of what happens with the well.
we are hooking up city water. We just, it was 10 days ago, they gave us,
Yeah, right.
they gave us the green light.
Yep.
We are, you know, for a lot of reasons, hooking up city water. So it's in no way an obstacle or a deal breaker.
So I see this as a significant improvement to an existing system. And therefore, it's only really new construction by nuance, you know, they're adding an ADU, so I don't see I don't see this in as significant violation of what we've been wanting to do for the past 6 months in rewriting our regs. I think the fact that it's a significant improvement, I think is something we want to encourage, not put roadblocks against.
I would just add, if this property was undeveloped. And a new home was going in here and it was vacant land, and they're proposing a 4-bedroom system. that's new construction,
Right.
would the board rule in the same way that they're thinking of ruling
Well,
in
I
this
would,
moment?
I mean, that's an abstract example, but I would, on the face of it,
It's a significant expense to us. You know, I don't necessarily have an issue with a deed restriction if it's just 4 bedrooms in total. You know, the 2-bedroom ADU and 2-bedroom house, you know, the ADU likely in ADUs, when I have all the regs here, not that we want to go through them, are, you know, typically 1 bedroom. And that's the idea. So it may be a 1-bedroom ADU and a 3-bedroom house, but the ability to expand in such a way to accommodate, you know, family, friends, expanding family that wants to live full-time in that residence potentially, is important. So.
so I would move that we accept the requested variances with the restrictions that Cody has outlined. Deed restriction on numbers of bedrooms,
Connecting to the.
connecting with city water.
Decommission.
And I don't know what our final verdict was on the well, but somehow,
I think the wells just need to be, decommissioned, at least in a way that they can't be used for drinking water.
right, I think
Um,
that's
especially because, yeah, I mean, a hand dug well, like, it's all well and good because they know better to test it now. But in a couple of years from now, somebody who doesn't want fluoride in their water starts drinking it instead. They at least would have to go through the expense of trying to hook it up to the house to use it.
That decommissioning will have to be done sort of by default when the excavation happens for the new line, because we're gonna sort of cross that. There's a pump house by the well. There was an original pump house, still there next to the well, but that connection will be abandoned. I mean, in such a way that you know, you'd have to dig the entire property up to, you know, reconnect it to the house. So that can be done.
So putting it in as a condition, since it's gonna have to happen anyway, of saying that it'll be decommissioned for potable water use in the future.
But still can be used for irrigation.
Yep.
Good. Anyone else?
Need a second,
Oh, I was, yeah.
second,
Second,
any discussion?
vote. Marco, yes.
Eric, yes.
Rosa, yes.
Aaron, yes.
President?
Thank you all very much.
A lot of effort on Joe's part in this.
And John. Probably a lot more effort on John's part.
Thank you.
Thank you for.
I live on the river.
It's an advancement for sure. Got a few more. Yeah, I'm just gonna try to sit in. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Next up, we have 35 Road, first class, John Jett.
Yes, yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, John Judd again for the Lamson family. This is a property that I think Tyler presented last meeting, and there were some questions. It's a Presby system that is going to serve, it's basically, it's a replacement system, advanced treatment because of the soils. There is some shallow ledge out there, so the variances were outlined by Tyler, and I think his marching orders at the last meeting were to raise it. Thor was concerned about one of the sections of the field would not have the requisite offset to groundwater, and it's since been redesigned to allow that to have fully, yeah, actually more, the system has much more than 4 foot of separation, but I think someone, I'm not sure if it was Mr. Sargent, had requested, why not turn it perpendicularly and do step, I did the test pits myself, and Cody, I don't know, yeah, there it is right there. I can just show.
Took me a minute to.
Yeah, that's all right. So we know we have ledge over here, shallow, so if we turned it this way, we know we have shallow ledge over here. So it was just the configuration of the ledge, so we needed to, obviously Title V requires you have to have at least 2 feet of soil throughout the system, and so that's what we're able to do. Per test here, 2 test pits, and then exposed rock and ledge. So it's a tough site, but I think that was the change that we did. We raised it up another foot. It didn't really affect anything. We could still do gravity down there, but that's where the soil was. We do have a well back here that we're maintaining the distance from. You can see the well radius, and this is sort of what limits us from coming this way.
Joe, I don't know where this place is, Preston Point.
Crescent Point's opposite West Parish.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so, you know, as you're coming toward the West Gloucester Fire Station from West Parish, it's a driveway that goes down on the right. A lot of people drive by it, but it's an interesting, a very interesting area.
Beautiful house.
Yeah, yeah.
So Crescent Point drives all the way back into kind of the Little River area.
Little River.
Yeah.
But it's not,
I don't know that.
it's not on the river.
It's very close. So just to review, because Aaron and Joe weren't at the meetings. So they are asking for a couple of variances for this project. So they are 65 feet from the flood zone where 200 feet are required. Elevation wise, they come up significantly, so there isn't particularly a threat of saltwater erosion control or something along those nature, but they are 65 feet away from the flood zone. They have a request 112 feet from the coastal bank where 200 feet is required. You know, once again, this kind of speaks to that fact that elevation wise, they're significantly higher under the new regulations, which we are voting on the old regulations here today. These two variances, we've kind of talked about, you know, elevation being a large component to them. They're 114 feet away from the salt marsh, so or 200 feet is required. So they are closer to the salt marsh on Little River. Under, you know, under our new regulations, like we would require a nitrogen system in this area, but once again, we're kind of, this was submitted before our new regulations, and we should consider it, you know, kind of as our existing regulations lie. They do not have a lot of soil on this site, so they've provided the Presby system. Where, you know, to reduce basically the naturally occurring soil to, you know, there's 25 inches plus. A little bit deeper in some areas where 48 inches is required. And they're also requesting a groundwater separation of 2 feet, where 4 feet is required. So when we were digging the test pits out there, I definitely was conservative about where the groundwater height was. There's not a lot of soil. So it's kind of basically that area out there gets blanched out essentially, like at times where the groundwater comes up and probably fully saturates that natural soil and then comes down. So a lot of this treatment is going to happen in the field, whether that be like in the Presby system or in the filtration sand underneath the Presby system. In the event of like, you know, heavy springs like we have now. Without heavy springs, I would imagine that like the majority of the time, there isn't a lot of groundwater there. I mean, we get those big fluctuations in the glacial till because of their permeability. So those are the 2 alternative design standards and 3 variances that are asked for this project. There isn't a lot of other areas to put this system unless you encroach on the well setbacks. Because a lot of the area has kind of been filled and it's shallow to rock. So
Can I ask John, why a Presby system and not Singular, for instance?
Well, it's a passive sand filter. It checks the box on advanced treatment. The testing, it's my understanding is good. What we have in Gloucester, as you know, a requirement for the testing. We have the testing pan proposed, for samples. It's a passive sand filter and it meets the, alternative, advanced treatment design standards. And the reason, Joe, is it's allowed by gravity. As opposed to adding more expense for the homeowner, where you're gonna add at least for the glorified septic tank. That's really what it is, 3-compartment tank and the electricity associated with it. You also have the component with the pumping, where this is, gravity. You have, the filters, the baffles, and then you have the passive sand filter. So that's the reason. Yeah, it's a passive sand filter and it's one of the, there's actually a new one that allows a geomat, allows for gravity flow, but I'm not comfortable with that one. Because it's only 1 inch thick. This is 18 inches thick. And that includes the piping and the associated C33 sand. And as I said earlier to Fred, that because we raise this up, we have a sloping ground. We have, at the lower end, we have over 4 foot of separation to the groundwater. At the highest point, we have a minimum of 2, but overall, it averages, over 3 feet, but 4 feet being the max. So.
Could that system in future accommodate denitrification?
I suppose you could add some kind of pre-treatment component to that, but Presby, do they have some kind of?
Not that I'm aware of that's approved in Massachusetts yet.
Yeah.
So you'd have to add some type of singular system before it.
Okay.
In order to provide some nitrogen reduction, I think at that point, or you could. There are like some newer technologies like the Nitrex, which is a wood chip system. That's been approved, but nothing Presby itself. Presby does offer an advanced treatment or advanced ES pipe, but basically the only difference is that the startup time is a lot less for treatment. So it adds an extra layer inside the pipe to the filter media that basically kickstarts the bacteria. So in the event of like seasonal operations and such, the advanced EnviroSeptic is often a good case to go with seasonal houses that they've seen. Both Presby systems are approved for the relief he's saying. They are not approved for nitrogen reduction at this time.
Okay, thank you.
So
Thank you.
they do provide some treatment, and that, like, if you've ever seen, so it's a 12-inch pipe. That pipe fills up with the effluent, and while it's full, it's basically percolating so slow through the membrane and then through that geotextile fabric that you get a lot of aerobic bacteria in the liquid in those pipes. And so as it's kind of filtering through there, you're getting that treatment. So the pipes act similar to like a tank would act, except that it's actively filtering out so that you're not necessarily getting the same residence time. But that's how the treatment kind of works. Is like, I don't know if you've ever poured or seen that geotextile fabric, but if you try to pour water through it, it's really difficult. And so they, that's the outer layer is that geofabric. Then they have their plastic media for the bugs to grow on. And then inside the tubes itself is just an open space basically that you are potentially getting some treatment in there just through like the buildup of a bioslime that can happen inside the tubes itself over time. But that's kind of the premise behind their research. I recently took their certification class just to kind of learn more about the Presbys because they come across.
Yeah.
Oxygen is a big part of this. Venting is a big part of the Presby system. So I'm sure Cody will verify that. That's they require that airflow through here for that, everything that Cody just explained. So
This unit has the test port.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, Gloucester requires that.
So, I mean, we could require nitrogen testing on it if we wanted to, but right now, under our current and our new regulations, the present systems have to be tested. So we got rid of the minimum testing requirements for things like the Singular. But we did not get rid of the testing requirements for the Presbys so that we can kind of monitor how they are performing in regards to TSS and BOD and pH.
John, are you all,
I'm through with my, yeah, thank you.
anyone discussion?
Thank you for the adjustment.
Like Tyler, he did it. I'll let him know.
You don't want to make a motion to accept? Yes,
Yes. So move.
Second,
all right. Marco, yes.
Eric, yes.
DeRosa, yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
I never realized there was a road there. I have to pay closer attention when I drive it now.
It's, yeah, 35 Crescent Point, it was a family who originally bought it, and still owns it, except for one resident at the end.
Yeah, Warren Preston has been a friend of mine for 50 years. Yeah,
So
a
next
wonderful family too. Yes, that's right.
we have 135 Benson Street.
Yeah. Ups and away.
Okay, thank you.
So 125 Denison Street.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last one for me this afternoon. Sorry you have to put up with me. This is 125 Dennison Street. This is the Marston family's house. You may recall 2 or 3 months ago, there was some dialogue with the peer review, et cetera, et cetera. The family is there's a big family of Marston's. Tiger is still around. He lives over on this side. I think there's 8 of them, Dave. Marston's.
Well, if there were 7, there would have to be a Snow White.
Okay. Anyway, so the family, so there's several outbuildings on this property. You have a 4-bedroom dwelling here, a 1-bedroom here, 1-bedroom here.
I'm pulling it up.
Yeah, okay, and I can go up
The
and-
internet's running slow on me
Yeah.
today.
Okay, so let me just give a little bit of a. So the main house is here, another outbuilding here, and 1-bedroom cottage here. So so what we have is everything coming down to all sorts of advanced treatment, pre-settling tanks. We have a singular active treatment tank here and a pressure distribution pump line that comes up here into the pressure distribution line here. So this is where the soil was when we did the testing. We had good depths, and this is, as you probably suspect, there's a lot of ledge out here. We try to show a lot of it. Anyone that's driven up Dennison Street to go into Dogtown, there's some nice trails back there, but you drive by and you see exposed ledge. Across the street is John Cunningham's old house there, number 124. And that house is served by wells that are, one of which is here, and there's another one here. And so the variances that we're looking for as part of this system have to do with these wells over here. John doesn't own this property anymore, but your regulation, the current owner is Wheeler. I've done work for him, but he's been notified of this as well. But because of the soil is here, this is where we're proposing this leaching facility. The existing system is over here now, and they put it there for a reason, because that's where the soil was. But it doesn't have the treatment and so forth that's there now, and it's in failure. So in short, this is a number of bedrooms here is 7.
Sorry, is there a way we can get into the other side?
There's a doorway on the other side.
Keep going down, there's a door. So it's a 7-bedroom design for the total. There's no increase in bedrooms here. This is all, they just want to, the family would like to address Title V and market the property. But smart the correct way to do this is to get this all worked out, which I'm glad they're doing. Before they list it. In any event, the variances are listed on the plan. And again, advanced treatment, we are looking for setback relief variances from the wells across for the Wheeler house here. We have 100 feet to the closest one and 136 to the next closest one here. Title V, as you know, only requires 100 feet. Gloucester requires 150 feet, so we're looking for that. We are also looking for a variance in, I'll explain this in a second, but the GIS maps show that this stream, which is to the south of the property down gradient, they show it going to Goose Cove Reservoir, and which is not correct. It goes out the other way, it goes into Goose Cove itself, out to the river. It doesn't necessarily mean it's less important to treat the effluent. I'm just, we don't really need this variance, but since it's mapped incorrectly on GIS, we're gonna ask for that, and Cody and I talked about that, and it's the safest thing to do because it is shown on the maps. So those are the variances. We do have some alternative design standards associated with the advanced treatment. I can answer any questions on that. We do have some local upgrades, which are unavoidable due to the groundwater at the tanks, the 12-inch required separation. And that's it. I know Cody's gonna have some more color on this, so we can.
So Tony reviewed this plan as an outside consultant, and I kind of talked with him a little bit about it. Or plenty, and I reviewed it myself quite a bit. So I'll just start because it's fresh in everyone's memory. So the tributary is to a zone A. It's mapped as a tributary to a zone A. John is correct in that, like, it does not actually flow to Goose Cove Reservoir. We do still need to vote on it as a variance because it was unclear on if we can declassify a stream as a zone A. So I talked to the engineering department, and in a couple of years, they're working on reevaluating our zone As and our tributaries. So it is a variance that needs to be voted on, but in voting on that variance, understand that it is a 200 feet basically to the ocean, as far as I know it, and I did walk that property and take a look at it last week just to. I've been out there before as far as, using the woods across the street. So in reviewing the plan, he does have the well setbacks. He is also asking for a reduction to groundwater of 2 feet. And a 50% reduction in field size. The singular system that's proposed is not a nitrogen reducing system. Results show that our Barnstable County results show that the standard singular system, not the DN or the TNT, has an average result of over about 40 systems of around 22 micrograms per liter. So it does pretty well, but it is not nitrogen reducing. So I think that in this case, adding either the DN or the TNT system to the site would make sense. So that would be my recommendation to the board. I kind of gave John a heads up on that. Unfortunately, it's something I didn't pick up on first review with Tony, so it wasn't reflected in this plan. But if we go with the TNT system, that's approved for 12 milligrams per liter, essentially it's a control panel turnout or change out.
Yeah.
So none of the tank locations would change. But given the fact that we're reducing the size of the field, and reducing the depth of groundwater, I think that potentially that could be, an added benefit. Also, given the complexity of the multitudes of buildings and structures, and basically how this whole property functions with 4 different dwellings, I think it would also be prudent to place a bedroom deed restriction on this property as well. Just so that, like, there's no, especially if they're going to sell it, there's no ambiguity. This is what it's designed for. This is what this property is capable of. Because of all these different dwellings, I mean, I haven't done a walkthrough on all of them. We've kind of gone off of assessor's records and what John has proposed here. So in the event that one of these one bedroom cottages, someone has shifted to 2 bedrooms to accommodate for a small child or something. I think it would create much less ambiguity down the line. Especially in the event of a sale. If that's what they determine to do. I don't know if that's exactly what they're planning on. So those are kind of the 2 recommendations I have to the board. Other than that, the variances to the health department's in full support of the plan.
Discussion.
Yeah, I really think that seed nitrogen is a great idea. And if it's approved, I think the approval letter should say clearly that the variance from the zone A is because.
Yes.
Otherwise, people say it's a precedent. And I noticed that the field was pretty close to the driveway, and if there's some stones to prevent people from driving on the field.
Agreed. Yeah, especially because it's used as a parking space as currently.
Yeah.
So when I was out there, it's a current space and it doesn't actually, there isn't a mounted system out there. Currently where the car is parked, and this system is not gonna be much of a mound. I think creating a mound could create kind of overall issues, and that's why potentially John's gone for the reduction in groundwater is to kind of keep both of those driveways serviceable. But I do think that in making sure that it's very clear that, yeah, that area cannot be currently, because it's a parking spot on both sides for both
Yeah,
homes
yeah,
and a pull through.
right.
Anyone else?
Cody, which night system did the same as the NT or?
So it's my understanding that the TNT is basically they switched the control panel on it.
So go with the TNT.
So, but the board can rule either way. The DN system. And talking, like I said, with O and Ms, that would add an additional tank, which is kind of a tight space for this. The O and M contractors say that that's actually does a little bit better treatment, but it's actually not approved for as much. The TNT is actually approved for better performance. But the DN system, so the board would have to kind of. So if the board were to approve the TNT system, basically there's no change in the current layout of the tanks. If the board decides, to go with the DN system, then they would have to add an additional tank. And you could approve, so. It's kind of part of that, and so in which case, like, the applicant we'd have to determine if the applicant would have to come back. For that approval process, because I guess we're applying for tanks within the buffer zone, so. We have to be a discussion, but my recommendation is I don't think you can go wrong with the DN or the TNT system, but I think we should be. Clear here, I guess if I were to recommend one, I think for ease, potentially. I would defer, or actually I would just defer to John and his judgment on which system would work better for this design.
If the TNT is tested for lower nitrates, we're okay with that. And we're okay with the deed restriction. That makes sense.
That deed restriction for 7 bedrooms?
7 total, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
We'll also add the boulders too. I can add that during that revision. Yeah, makes sense.
So anyone else? So I know that we accept with the deed restriction for 7 bedrooms, the TNT and the boulders. Yeah,
Second,
second. All right, we'll take a vote. Marco, yes?
Eric, yes. DeRosa, yes.
Erin, yes.
Okay, thank you all very much.
Aaron, it is 5 o'clock. Just to give you a-
Glad someone's.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Oh, but on the dot.
I should. Fire trying to be fairly negative, but.
So last on the agenda.
That's why.
That's
Oh,
yeah.
now.
Concerns involving it all?
With before we get.
David,
Hello.
concerns of the board?
Living up there, it's scary.
Thank you, Eric.
Eric,
Never burned.
Joe, concerns of the board?
Sorry,
Concerns of the board.
I actually have a question about our policies going forward. We approved a Presby system that could be impacted by water table rising or because it's close to the water and things like that. Should we be trying to encourage the installers not to propose Presby systems in those cases? I mean, the fact that it's approved is neither here nor there as far as I'm concerned. Because you're asking the field itself to do a lot of the work. And the field itself is going to be potentially impacted by global warming, sea level rise and all that stuff. So a singular system or singular-like system is much more appropriate, I think. But what do I know?
I share your concerns, and this is kind of why, they agreed to raise it 1 foot,
Yeah.
because, it is a sensitive area. And as Cody said, groundwater does fluctuate in, it's shallow overburden with ledge there. And he was conservative with, is looking at seasonally high groundwater. But my understanding is it generally has to be there for like 2 weeks, a year during above biological zero, which is usually in late March or early April, in order to oxidize. Sometimes you get like fluctuations above that, and that's the rationale for having the 4 foot separation from seasonally high groundwater. So, but that's a generalization. Obviously, if you're in a bowl, it's gonna be more. If you're on a hill, it's gonna be less, so.
And also, I mean, they're using the average depth. Is that relevant? I mean, can you wipe out part of the system and still be okay?
Systems, particularly those that rely on bugs eating the bugs. And that's what you're talking about. It'll be like, just an intermittent thing. But you could have the same thing with seasonal properties with different people, producing different types of bacteria into the system or things like that. So systems, the way that they're designed now, my understanding is they're fairly robust and they're not meant to be fragile, for the environment. But I'm not a big fan of, the Presby. I'm not a Presbyterian.
Yeah, so we should be encouraging that, so that, if the comment back is that, oh, but it's so much more expensive. Can we tell them that there are loan opportunities?
I do think that, so our new regulations, when voted in May, will require a nitrogen reducing system in an area like this.
Yeah,
And so a Presby system wouldn't go in.
yeah,
So like I think that like we will still, because we have reduced our setback for coastal bank and land subjects to coastal flooding. I do think that like moving forward with those setbacks under the new regulations, systems could potentially move closer, in which cases we should definitely, I think, probably work on a policy that says that like a patented sand filter system probably shouldn't be installed in those places. So although it's not in our regulations, we
That's the judgment
can
call.
recognize kind of that the board would like to see something different.
So how would we justify that though if it meets Title V?
Because of our own setbacks, I guess, but I guess that's not a variance if it's inside, but.
You can be more strict than the state standard, but
Yeah,
you can't be
of
more
course.
lenient, right? So-
Right, so because like Little River and all those areas have to put in a Singular next time, or an Advantex, or a fast system. Those projects will no longer be. The Presby system won't work in those areas, and so I think it'll be
So it is area dependent.
less of a, yes, definitely.
Yeah.
So you can still use a Presby if you just.
But
Depends
not,
where you're
so
at.
like that flooding concern, like I think you'll get enough overlap with like, this is the salt marsh and the flood zones. This is, so it's also a nitrogen sensitive area, because any of our you know, we have the nitrogen sensitive areas are 200 feet within any of our coastal rivers. And it also covers like, I think, do we do 100 or 200 feet to a perennial freshwater stream? I think it's 100 feet. So those areas like that, existing houses already are there. If they're infringing on it, I don't think they can't put in a Presby anymore. And so I think we've kind of protected ourselves with the new regulations as far as not being subjective. So now like moving forward, like John's gonna know, I can't bring a Presby system for this, it won't be approved.
Right, a lot of times those things are negotiated when you're in the field doing the soils and you're talking to people.
So I mean, it's also good to hear the board's feedback in this area so that like I understand kind of,
Right.
you know, because when we came forward with 35 Crescent Point 2 weeks ago, Dave we had a discussion about like the efficiency and how much he isn't a huge fan of Presby's. I mean, regardless of that, they are approved for certain technologies, but when granting variances, we can request whatever system we'd like to see.
Sure. Good.
And operationally, let's be simple.
I think that we still should have Presby's to monitor them to see how well that they perform, but not in sensitive areas, because it does provide a significant.
It's a significant cost reduction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so, rather than doing a blanket of never,
Right.
It's site specific.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like when Dan Johnson came forward a couple weeks ago with 10 Lawrence Mountain Road. I sat down with him beforehand, and because he was asking for a well setback, he came in and was like, well, I have a Presby system and I have this Waterloo system, which one do you want to see? Or which one does the board want to see? And I said, well, the board's gonna want to see this one.
Yeah,
That's right.
I think it's all our growing pains, I guess, in sense.
What is the difference in price?
It's hard to necessarily speculate. I think that on 10 Lawrence Mountain Road, the figure was a shoot from the hip figure was between 10 and 20,000.
I think closer to 20.
Yeah.
For Presby,
Yeah,
Presby's $20,000 cheaper.
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 no pumps, no electricity.
It's just a gravity system. In some ways, it'd be interesting to pair like a Presby system with some of the layer cake systems that are looking for approvals. So layer cake systems incorporate wood chips into their sand as a nitrogen component, and it's a really kind of interesting new forward thinking. The layer cake systems, I hope to see more of them coming forward because they're really inexpensive and really effective. There is a little bit of a question of how long they're effective, because once the wood chips biodegrade, then they're no longer there, and so you'd have to rejuvenate your field. Which is difficult to do because the wood chips are beneath the leaching system. But there are some new tank systems there's one that's been approved so far for wood chip technology, which is really promising. And so, yeah. Any other concerns? Or I guess I just bring up the one, so I do think we'll probably see some more ADUs that come in and come forward. Some of those maybe should be moved up to the Board of Health so that, if they're at all contentious, potentially just to have the full board there, especially after the ruling tonight. Because 87R kind of withdrew because they weren't necessarily 100% making the manifestly unjust argument. So I expect, they could come back again, there's lots of ADUs that are gonna be coming in because of the new compliance. And so we'll hear lots of similar stories to Joe's, that we'll have to just take one at a time.
Anyone else? ADUs are tough.
What?
ADUs are tough now.
Yeah, they add a little bit of, they add an emotional complexity to a situation.
Well said.
Justin, right, it's good.
Yeah, I wish everybody was
Should
sure.
we adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Mark, yeah.
Eric, yes. DeRosa, yes.
I know. Yeah. This is nice stuff. Help her again.